Hello, and welcome to the Three Questions podcast, where we dive deep into the world of wealth management and connect you with industry experts. I'm your host, Wayne Baxter, Senior Executive Manager at One Capital Management. Now, if you or someone close to you is a high net worth homeowner relocating to a catastrophic state like Florida, and you're feeling shocked about rising insurance costs or coverage challenges, stay tuned. We made this episode just for you. What's the topic? It is the 3 questions high net worth homeowners should ask about purchasing insurance when relocating to a catastrophic weather state. Thank you for taking time to check us out. And if you enjoyed this episode of the 3 Questions podcast, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our podcast and YouTube channels. For high net worth families relocating to a catastrophic weather state such as Florida, for example, insurance has become one of the most challenging and expensive parts of the move. Premiums have skyrocketed due to hurricanes, rising reinsurance costs, and increased litigation, often exceeding property taxes in some areas. Many new arrivals are caught off guard by stricter underwriting, coverage gaps, and the need for specialized policies like flood insurance. Today, we're exploring the 3 questions high net worth homeowners should ask about purchasing insurance when relocating to a catastrophic weather state. And joining the podcast from West Palm Beach, Florida, is my good friend, Lori Salkin. She is a senior client executive at Fieldstone Insurance Group. And Lori is a high net worth insurance advisor who works with clients on all aspects of their insurance portfolios, from placing and securing proper coverage to analyzing complex risks and negotiating with carriers to achieve the best possible outcomes. Lori, here we are. We finally did it. Welcome to the podcast. Great to see you.
It's better to see you, Wayne. Thank you for having me.
This is going to be a lot of fun today, and educational and informative.
Absolutely.
Okay, before we get to the questions, I know I got questions and then more questions, but before we get to that, I want to provide the folks listening in a little bit of context here. The topic of the episode references the term, and you are the one who brought it to my attention. I'd never heard it. Full disclosure, I'd never heard the term catastrophic weather state before you and I talked about it. But here's after moving here, from Canada to Southern California and, having friends around the country, and here we are right now, literally, there is a wildfire, about 20 miles north of us here? I think it's about 20 miles due north, where there's a wildfire called the Sandy Fire going on right now. Well, and I got an app that gives me a notification every time any movement happens with this fire. So I'm standing here in Southern California. Isn't every state almost in this country a catastrophic weather state?
Isn't it funny that we're both sitting here talking from catastrophic weather
No
state?
kidding. But I'm like of the opinion, this whole idea, like where is the optimum place to live? Well, every place has its own cross to bear.
So it's funny you say that because when you look at Illinois, for instance, in 2026, they had the most tornadoes in the country, Illinois. So, I mean, is every state? No, but the thing is, across the United States, there are, I'm directionally challenged, but I think Mother Nature is just having her way. She's beating me to it because, you've got, Oklahoma, and Texas, and Kansas that with hail and severe storms. You've got flash flooding in the lower Mississippi Valley and the Southeast. And then, of course, coming in last place is the Northeast, right? Which has, some heavy rain and some snow. But is there such a thing as more catastrophic states? I think California is known for wildfires. Texas is known for flooding. Florida is known for hurricanes. So there are technically catastrophic states, but weather is weather, and it doesn't discriminate.
Remember, Joplin, Missouri got completely wiped out.
Exactly. Look what happened to Asheville, North Carolina.
My client, literally, I know she's listening to this, so she'll know I'm talking about her. Had
Hmm.
a client move from Toronto to Asheville.
Right. That wasn't
And
supposed to
and
happen.
and she was deciding where to move to. I'm not kidding. And she ended up, not to get into too much topography here, but she had an option of renting an apartment down into the town or up on the hill above the town. And at
Hmm.
the last, she decided to move up on top of the hill. Thank God, because if you ever
Hmm.
saw any of the videos of basically wiped out, it was horrible.
Sure.
Anybody in Nashville, and thank for God she was okay. But I mean, we couldn't get a hold of her because her cell service. We were trying to get a hold of her to see if she was okay, and it was. I called. I
A
was
lot of
actually.
them did. A
I
lot of them
was.
did use their self-service up there.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually got through to her on the Monday, and she couldn't believe I got through because she hadn't been able to get any in or outbound calls, and I called randomly just on a. I had a break between appointments, and I just called her and said, "Wayne, how'd you get through?" And thank God she's fine, But yeah, there
I'm
you go.
glad. I'm glad to hear that.
Ooh,
Yeah. Scary. Scary
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So again, it doesn't matter. Like I said, it doesn't seem to matter what part of the U.S. you're in. You could probably say, well, there's some
You
kind
know,
of
Mother
catastrophe.
Nature, she's just not discriminating. She's
Yeah,
just, she's when she's in a bad mood, we know it.
yeah.
So,
Well, for sure. So anyway, it's just moving on. So I guess the biggest question I would ask you to think about here is if you're living one of these catastrophic states, like the importance of working with an insurance advisor and ahead of time is got to be essential,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
do you do not you do not want you do not want to basically try to be a do-it-yourselfer in this space at
No,
all.
no, definitely not. Yeah. You definitely want to work with someone who knows what they're doing and is very well versed in the state so you know what to look for and how to advise them properly.
Okay, so I guess the first thing that comes to mind here with all of this is when you're talking with somebody, because you work with I know you work with clients up and down the East Coast, you work with clients around the country. So when
Mhm.
you're talking to clients, what's the biggest thing that surprises them when they first receive their new insurance quotes? I like to use the term there are spiritual awakenings and rude awakenings. So what is the rude awakening when you're having that initial discussion?
You mean like the premium?
Yeah, well, that I'm deferring to you on that.
Yeah, the premium. And that's a very big rude awakening for them because you have to think that when you're coming from a place that's not weather related like New York, for instance, um, and you're not rating for wind or flood or any of those cat storms, and you're coming to a place like Florida, that is going to be a shock to the system. I had one client say to me, I don't understand. This is higher than my real estate taxes. And I said, yes, and it, and it should be because, so that's a very big shock to the system. Also, another thing to be wary of or just to understand are the documents that are needed when you are looking to insure a home here or anywhere that's not in a cat state. You need different documentation than you would
Yeah, we're
in.
going to address that in one of the questions as well.
Mhm.
So your
Sure.
point taken. All right,
Hmm.
Lori. Well, listen, we're discussing the three questions high net worth homeowners should ask about purchasing insurance when relocating to a catastrophic state. I say we get right to the questions. Ready to go?
Okay, I
All right,
am
question
ready for
number
you.
one. We just moved from New Jersey to Boca Raton, Florida. I know a town you're quite familiar with. We were surprised to discover that our insurance is now than our real estate taxes. Why is that?
Yes. Well, because first of all, if you look at a place like New Jersey is going to they are going to, the insurance is going to rate for fire and liability and theft, maybe snowstorms, right? They're not going to rate for the same thing and underwrite for the same things as Boca Raton would, right? Florida is going to rate for things like roof claims, hurricanes, water intrusion like mold, litigation, especially, which is extremely high in Florida, and that factors into the premiums. Flood, fraud. You're seeing the difference here, right? That what's going on between Florida and New Jersey. So even though, New Jersey has its own set of rating, it's just not, it doesn't, it's apples and oranges compared. So that's why.
So would you say the biggest driver, what would you say the biggest driver? Is it the litigation? Because I remember I think you and I were talking about this
We
before.
were, and litigation is huge, and that's really because, I mean, and I think a lot of that had to do with, I mean, a lot of it has to do with fraud. And when you think about what happened with Hurricane Ian, think about it, there was so much damage done, and there were so many people knocking on doors saying, "Hey, need your roof repaired? I can do that." And they weren't, like contractors. They weren't real, legitimate contractors. They were people looking to make a buck, and they would go up on the roof, and they did a lousy job. And ideally they were brought there in court, and who paid for it, right? I mean, because a lot of these homeowners would take them to court, and there was so much litigation brought into the courtroom in Florida, and that eventually, factored into the claims because the homeowner, the insurance companies were defending them.
I was just thinking about when you're talking about this first part about this couple moving from New Jersey to Boca, right? And I would just say this for anyone who is relocating to South Florida, especially for those who are relying on their retirement income or they're simply doing some cash flow planning. I'll say this right now, working with Lori
Yeah,
is really going to be, ahead of time, not after the fact. Ahead of time is going to really, really be a big plus from a wealth planning perspective. This whole, it reminds me of a good, really good friend of mine back in Canada. He used to say to me, Wayne, act or be acted upon.
that's
So
great.
this
I
this
like
is a
that.
particular example where you want to jump on this one before you get too far ahead of yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And I will tell you, just to go with you on that, that one of the things that we do, and we do very well, is we work with wealth advisors and estate planners and, tax advisors together to protect the client, right? Because we want to make sure that, I mean, you're the one that knows very well their assets and what they have, and
And
we
what
are
their
the
cash flow requirements are, because like you said, like this whole idea of a client coming to us and saying, "Well, I'm planning to move to Florida. I live here," and we do a cash flow analysis. We need to
Mhm.
know what realistically, realistically speaking, what their expenses are going to be for their homeowners insurance. And again, there's just not just homeowners insurance. We have to look at risk insurance. There's all the like. There's I know
And not
you're.
only that way, but when you talk about that, you also have to know what they are able to, what their risk tolerance is, because you want to make sure that they have the liquidity, to be able to self-insure, right? A lot of them are self-insuring. Can they take higher deductibles? Can they take, $50,000 deductibles to bring down their insurance premiums? And that's where you come in, and that's where we work together.
Collaborate. This is not like these are not exercises that are done in silos or done independent.
Mhm.
We all need to work together, and that's exactly
Exactly.
what. Yeah, we work hand in hand. Our topic today is the three questions high net worth homeowners should ask about purchasing insurance when relocating to a catastrophic weather state. Joining us from West Palm Beach, Florida, is Lori Sullivan, and she is a senior client executive with Fieldstone Insurance Group. Okay, Lori, let's move on to question number two. We are in the process of looking for a home in South Florida. What information should I have ready in order to ensure that the underwriting process goes smoothly? I know you know this one, so take it away.
Well, the best thing you can do is be prepared, right? And be prepared ahead of time. So, having in Florida, as I mentioned earlier, you have different documents that you would than you would in New Jersey. So let's say you're going to buy a home, you want to have a current wind mitigation, which tells you the what the wind credits are. Do they have impact glass? Do they have impact doors, protecting and what the roof is like. So that's a great thing to have, a great report to have. Also a 4-point inspection because the underwriters want to look at this. It's really important. They want to make sure that these meet the Florida building code. So if you can have that ahead of time, that will benefit you. Also, you want to know what the security, like what the credits are. Do they have central station alarms? Do they have a backup generator? Do they have what does the home actually have? And if you can get that early enough, then before you even think about quoting insurance, then you will be ahead of the game because when the advisor asks you for that information, you're going to have it and you'll get a quote in like 5 minutes. I mean, you'll just get it very quickly.
I got a million questions now. I got one right off the bat. I just saw it of just a second. So we all know there are more than a fair share of condos in South Florida, to put it mildly. And there are, standalone homes. So if would someone who's moving into a condo versus into a house look at insurance any differently, or do they both have the same kind of high barrier to entry from
Well,
an insurance?
sure, a condo is going to be very different than a home because with a home, you are insuring the entire structure, right? You're insuring the building and everything that goes with it. With a condo, you are insuring the inside from the walls in,
Mhm.
it's called the additions and alterations, everything built in, right? You're not insuring the building or the roof or the walkways, the common areas, because that is covered by a master policy. In other words, the condo association will have a master policy that will cover all of that. Your responsibility is think of it like from the studs in, right? And everything inside of that. And you want to make sure that a replacement cost estimator is done so you are insuring correctly for that.
That's interesting, which leads me to think, and not to get way off on a tangent here, is that
Okay, we can go on any tangent you want, Wayne. Let's
oh,
go. I'm
okay, well, it's
along for
just
the
the
ride.
homeowners association part.
Mhm.
Oh boy. So, ignorance is bliss and the mother of adventure is what I'm thinking right now. Is that if I'm buying into a condo, I want to have a good idea of how protected the homeowners association has, what
You
kind
can
of,
get a copy of their master policy. You can ask them for it.
and you could analyze it and come to, if it was me, hypothetically, say I'm moving to Florida,
Hmm.
Lori, and I'm going to buy a condo in
Hmm.
Boca Raton, West Palm Beach, wherever.
Hmm. Sure.
And not only you give me the quote for the place that I'm moving into,
Right.
but you say, okay, let's take a look at this policy and see
I
how it.
mean, sure. What I would do is I would call and I know a lot of them, but I would call the property manager of the building because what I'm going to do also, Wayne, is I'm going to get a copy of their wind mitigation report, right? To make sure that you never know. So, I want to, first of all, I'll need it because I'll need to know what the when do they have impact glass? Did they put impact glass on all the condos? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. What's the roof? I need to know information about the roof. And that's in there, the building's wind mitigation report. Okay. We talked about that. That shows all the impact glass and the wind credits and the year built, and it shows everything. So that's something I can get from that, but I can certainly get a copy of the master policy as well, which shows what's covered and what is not. And since I do private client, I would probably give it to a commercial advisor that I work with to have them assess it and make sure that they're reading it correctly. I mean, I could read it, but I'd want somebody that's even more detailed to give that
Perfect.
information to you.
Okay, I got to ask you about timing here. So, Okay, so you're looking to put an offer on a place. Now, you found a place
Hmm.
that you kind of like. So in the context of timing, when
Hmm.
should this buyer in this case that we're talking about, when should they start the insurance conversation relative
ASAP.
to he didn't even read.
No, ASAP. You know why? Because here's the thing. I like if you're going to, if you here, if you even know, if you know that you're going to do that, I would go to the realtor, the realtor that you're using,
Right, right, right.
and and ask those questions that I told you about. Get those documents. Get if it's a home, right? And you want to get the seller will the realtor of the seller will have that 4-point inspection and the wind mitigation. And if they don't, and you need it, because the home is not brand new and it's a little bit older, you're going to need it. So you want the seller to get it. Chances are you can negotiate and you can get the seller to to pay for it. It's not that expensive. And and you will need that ahead of time. So if you know that you're putting an offer in, I would get those papers right away. And also you can ask them. You can ask the realtor. The realtor will have the information about you'll know if it's in a gated community, but more importantly, you'll know, is there a backup generator? Is there signal continuity? Do they have lightning protection? Do they have all these credits for the home? Because that plays a part in reducing your premium big time, right? And especially the water leak detection. Now, most homes in Florida will have a water shutoff device. In New Jersey, for instance, a lot of times when new business is written in the Northeast, it's a requirement to have the water shut off device. You know why? Because the number one cause of loss in the Northeast are water claims.
Hmm.
So they require you to have the water shut off, like the water leak detection and the water shut off device. In Florida, if you think about it, what's the cause of loss? Well, you get mold, and that's because of water intrusion. And that's because we get hurricanes and we get wind-driven rain and we get all sorts of, what it could be anything though. It could be, a leaky dishwasher hose flooded the kitchen, right? So
Hmm.
there's all sorts of water losses, and a water leak detection system is so critical for any homeowner getting, because if they leave, they go away for a weekend, it will shut the water off to the home and prevent a flood.
Interesting. Okay, I gotta ask a question. You talked about documents earlier.
Hmm.
So I'm going to focus here on the more high value. I know that's your sort of your happy place, your
And
space.
that does go to high value, by the way. That's what I'm
Right.
talking about. Yeah.
Right, right. But there are, you talk about what specific, I want to get into the weeds here. What specific documents or details or property details, I guess, would an insurance carrier pay most attention to if they're underwriting, say, a higher value property? Is there any specific documents or what are they honing in on?
The roof,
Hmm,
the roof.
interesting.
They want to know about the roof. They want to know because if you think about it, I mean, if you've got an older roof, chances are they very well may not write the risk. I've had to put, or you won't get it in the admitted carrier. You'll get it maybe in the non-admitted or the excess and surplus lines carrier. But you if you have an older roof, think about it subject to, leaks. It's
So
subject to
if you're doing
wind.
a house purchase and you're going to be really focusing on like how long ago was that roof? Like
Well,
that's
right. I mean, they want to know how much remaining useful life there is in that roof. When was it replaced? Is it tile? Is it cement? Is it metal? Is it a metal roof? If it's a flat roof, chances are it's not going to look too good. They don't like flat roofs. They don't like rolled roofs in Florida. So there's so many different guidelines. I always say like the roof is just and it's just a very critical aspect to it. And the newer the roof, they love it. They love it. They just go wild for it. It's like
Okay.
it's like buying a new dress. It's a great thing. Just
Yeah,
saying.
yeah. Well said. Noted. Um, okay, so upgrades. You just segued. I came prepared. Okay, just I knew
Well,
you're
you know me.
there's a
It's like
battle
I
of
have to
wits here.
unprepare you.
There's a battle of wits here. Uh, okay, upgrades. So you're saying key ones would be, I'm thinking, the impact windows. I met with a good friend of mine, moved from Toronto, has a place in not far in Hollywood, not far.
Mm, sure.
And yeah, he said, "You gotta come check out my condo." So I go to his condo, and he spent a fair amount of time talking about the impact windows he had put into this place.
Sure. Right. And that's a big thing. That's
I,
important.
yeah, he
Yeah.
was so I'm thinking the impact windows are a big deal. The roofs. What about generators? Like, is like having like not just like
Well, think about where you are. I mean, you're in Florida, and if all it takes is one storm to knock out power for 2 weeks, you have a backup generator. Good for you, right? So that's a great thing. Um, if you have again, water shut off to central station monitoring alarms. Those are huge. I mean, the underwriters want that definitely, because they want to make sure that your home is monitored, right? Because if you're away, a lot of our clients go away. They want to make sure it's monitored. Maybe you have a property manager, someone who comes in and watches the property while you're away. That'll give you a great credit as well. Um, lightning protection, water, signal continuity, surveillance cameras, which are great. A lot of people have cameras around, you're talking high net worth. So a lot of
sure.
big, so they'll have cameras around the property that'll give you, a credit as well. And that protects the home. So there's lots of different credits that you can get and ways to protect the home. Again, I stress water shut off because I just have seen too many claims about that. And that's just really, really important. So,
That falls under the act or be acted upon category, I would say.
yeah, true.
All right.
Yeah,
So, okay, Lori, let's move on to question number three.
yes.
This one's near and dear to me. We just got our green cards and are looking to relocate from Ontario, Canada to Orlando, Florida. My banker tells me that we don't need flood insurance because we are in a preferred flood zone. Is that true?
False.
Faulting.
With the capital letters. Capital letters, Wayne.
False.
You know what? There's no such thing as a preferred flood zone anymore.
I looked, I did my research. I did my research on this. I actually did my research. I believe Orlando is somewhere between 80 and 100 feet above sea level, just
I
for
don't
the.
care what it is. I'm here's the thing. Here's the thing. The reason I don't believe it is
West Palm
because
Beach, I think, was
no,
6.
yeah, you know what? You know what? I'm gonna debate you on this because here's the thing. When I was in my first year here, all right, and lucky me, I got to witness Hurricane Ian. Now, granted, I was in Palm Beach,
Lucky.
right? But that was on the West Coast. Now, Hurricane Ian, so you know how devastating Ian was, it turned out to be the largest, surpassing Katrina in claim payouts, over $170 billion in claim payouts. Hurricane Ian went up the west coast of Florida and then, like me, got directionally challenged and decided to make a right turn
I remember all of this. I
and go
remember
across the state. It went across the state.
There were tornadoes
Yeah, it went
in
across
between
this.
West Palm Beach and Boca Raton, I believe.
That was a different storm, Wayne.
Oh,
That
oh,
was Milton. I'm talking about I'm talking
my
about
fail.
Ian
My
and
fail. My
and no,
fail.
that's okay because we could talk Milton's the one that went up to Asheville also, but here's the thing.
We
So
digress. Sorry about that.
So no. It's it's like a storm is a storm, right? So Ian, though, went across the state and it went into places that should never flood, like the central part of the state, like Orlando. And it convinced me 100% that no place is exempt from flood. I don't care where you are. And and I'll tell you why, because here is a great story. So I have Boca, right? I had a client who purchased an $8 million uh, condo in Boca. Now you would think if you're in a condo, most people think, oh, I don't need
An
flood.
$8 million condo.
Yeah,
Hello.
right. And I don't need flood. I'm in a condo, right? I'm in a building. I don't need flood, right? Wrong. Why did he flood? Because he was on the second floor and he faced the ocean. And I said to him, do you know what the chances are of storm surge?
I just took the words out of
And
my mouth.
if that surge goes into your beautiful $8 million home, that's not covered by wind, it's covered by flood. And he bought a flood policy. These are things that people need to think about. Storm surge is a real thing. And look what it did to the west coast of Florida, right?
I have I can reference, I can acknowledge, I don't have personal experience with this, but I I know somebody whose parents live on the West Coast, and they live in Coral Gables, which is on near Miami. Her Their parents live on in it was in Fort Myers.
Yes.
And
Yes. Destroyed.
okay, so remember, I lived in Canada and I moved to
Hmm.
California, and
Right.
I'm very inquisitive. So for example, when I first moved here, I asked everybody I ran into about the Northridge earthquake. I wanted to know everything I could learn about what it was like to be living through that. So
Sure.
that when I started making friends in Florida, I'm asking everybody about the climate,
Hmm.
and that that Hurricane Ian, this particular individual, their parents lived in Fort Myers, and
Hmm.
they told me that up until that particular storm, that they get the warnings of the hurricane, and they said it was a bit of a game. Everybody would get together, they'd scramble, they'd get all their furniture, everything locked down, and they would wait for the storm to go through. They'd go out, they'd clean up all the branches and whatever dropped down, and they put everything, all their furniture back out, and it would all be, maybe their power might go out for a few days, but it was no big deal. It was almost like
Oh, it
they
was.
referred to it as a game.
Right.
And then Ian came through and basically trashed Fort Myers, I think would be the best way to describe
Yes.
it, right? And
Yes.
their parents lived there.
Hmm.
And I cannot use I will not repeat on this podcast the language that was used to describe their reaction to the climate in Florida. Their mood and attitude has changed dramatically about it from then into from as a result of that,
No, you're not wrong. And
and
not
neither
only
are
that,
they.
not right. And not only that, but there was the time that it took for FEMA to actually get out there and help these people. There were people living in mold infested homes, and because it was better than being homeless, right? Or
Mhm.
sitting out there. It was just devastating to see the destruction that Ian did. And that's why I just think flood is so, so important. I offer it with every single quote that I do and let a client decline it, but I offer it and I
Yeah,
explain why.
and you have so many examples of the why. I
Sure.
mean, like features
Right.
and
I have the
benefits, right?
why. I
Yeah, the
have the
features and
why.
benefits, right? So I
Yes.
got one more question. I just want to segue back if you don't mind. I know we kind of
No,
went off
not at all.
so I know you're here in the US and you are expected to know the nuances of Canadian
I have
insurance.
Canadian
But
clients. Don't sell me
I
shit.
know that, but I don't expect you to be an expert on Canadian property insurance. But so
Right.
that said, so for a resident like this case study, the couple wanting to move from Ontario down to Orlando, when you're talking to a Canadian client, what are the most common insurance misconceptions or surprises they encounter? And I know the premiums are one, but are there any other things that come to mind that, would be a surprise to a Canadian looking to buy insurance down here in whether it's Florida, California, Texas, wherever?
Well, I mean, I think that, first of all, location has a lot to do with it because if you're going to buy or try to buy in Key West, for instance, it's going to be a lot different than buying in, let's say, um, Palm Beach Gardens or, you know, so, um, and it's going to be more difficult because for a long time after Ian, Monroe County was closed. So the carriers just were not even insuring there. Even in Miami, they weren't insuring there. So that was that was a big shock because everyone loves, people love Miami, they love the nightlife, they love the culture. So it was hard to find and then of course the premiums were astronomical. So that was really difficult too. Um, I think I just think I think when people come down from Canada, just my own Canadian clients, I think having the right advisory is just very, very important. So whatever questions I have, because they could have a collection of art and they have to know how to insure it and how to protect it. That's really important when you're living in a catastrophic state. And if they need appraisals or they don't know how to, for instance, where or how to hang a particular $8 million, you know, painting. We have those relationships with Ger Johns or Winston Art, and then we can have people come in and help them. So there's a lot of different services that we offer based on the relationships that we have, long-standing relationships. So, and with our wealth advisors too. We work hand in hand with you. So, um, but I think the most important thing really is that I should bring up is excess liability. That's critical. And the umbrella policy really, really is important because working with someone like if we have the same client, um, it's for a Canadian, it's really important because litigation is not something that's very prevalent in
You are
Canada.
preaching to the choir
I know,
here.
I know I am. And the thing is, when here in the US, people think of it as just something that, oh, well, it's going to protect my home and my auto, and that's great. But it really is situational. It's lifestyle. And you have to know what the client's lifestyle is, because that's really important to help determine what limit that a client should have because the jury, we are seeing very, very high jury verdicts. And so if for instance, if a client has a dog, and I mean this in all love, I love dogs, but last year there were 4 million dog bites in the US alone. So, if there's a dog bite and they get sued, we're seeing the judges don't care that these clients are high net worth. They're going to assign a very high, jury verdict. If they love to, have and they love to entertain in their homes and someone has too much to drink and they leave the home, it's going to fall back on them. And these are things that people don't think about that they need to think about.
Oh, you just opened up a can of worms there on that one. Yeah. Or things that go crazy at the party and someone gets
Of
like,
course. And then not only that, but look
I
at the
know,
world of social media, right? We're in social media and someone puts out something that offends somebody else and it's personal injury, right? And someone wants to sue them because they feel it's reputational damage.
uh, I, next time we meet up, I'm going to tell you a story. I got a live one for you. See,
So these are things that
this is
excess
the kind,
liability is so important because these are things that people don't think about that actually is important. And that's where should they have a $10 million policy or should they have 50 million? And not including what are their assets. You would know that because you know what their whole portfolio looks
yeah,
like.
and what
I
they're
know what
and
their,
what they spend money on too. That's a
of
big part of what I
course.
do.
And I know what their insurance portfolio looks like, but
Yeah.
we need to know what their lifestyle looks like.
Yeah, bingo. Okay, before we wrap up, I'm sort of the action item, the call to action. Uh, so we've covered a lot. I knew we would. Is there a practical step or one practical step, the high net worth homeowner who's looking at relocating to a catastrophic weather state? Is there something they should do right now, like what they could do right away to protect their property and their wealth? Is there any kind of action item or call to action that you would suggest?
Well, I mean, I think that if you're talking about like, I think, yes, I think that making sure that you are um, communicating with both your wealth advisor and your insurance advisor is very, very important. Documenting things as they happen. I can't tell you how many times a claim has happened and someone has not documented, like they've moved, right? And they have bought this home and they say they or like in other words, maybe they're going to, you know, put in an in-home safe because they've got jewelry and they didn't tell their insurance advisor. And they say, well, I'll wait for my renewal because I'm going to have, a meeting with them, my once a year annual review. As you do things, you should be telling your advisor about it so they can let the underwriter know and you can put that credit on, you can save money on your, renewal. But document everything. When you move into a home, video everything that you have because in the event of a claim and you need to prove that something was damaged or lost, you have video evidence, you have receipts, you can show them what it was because everything's replacement costs, right? Everything. And you can show them what you had instead of thinking back, what was it? I know it was something. I know that couch. I just got it. It was like some, but you have it right there because you moved in and you did the right thing. Does that make sense?
100%. No, you're bingo. And I know we've got to wrap up here, but okay. For anyone who's listening right now, uh, okay, they want to make sure that their insurance strategy integrates with the overall plan, their retirement plan, their estate plan. They do capital forecasting. They know what they spend. They know what they've got. Uh, is there a connect? You talked about communicating. Is there any other steps they should be taking if they? Is there any other wealth protection planning that you would think of that you would recommend from your perspective? I mean, you've been really thorough today, but I just want to know if there's any missing elements that anything that we have overlooked.
Yeah, well, I mean, if anything, I would end it with this. I think that you have to, again, your role is essential, right? But because you have to make insurance part of the conversation. So you have
Part
to
of the
discuss.
capital forecast, that's for
Right,
sure.
exactly. And you have to make sure that the client's liquidity is sufficient to carry maybe higher deductibles. Does the insurance structure support their estate goals or does it conflict with them? You want to make sure that you update the plan annually. And you have the discussion continuously because things change, right? Like people relocate, they acquire properties, they do renovations, their portfolio shifts. So I would end it with that you just want the estate planning to respond to the same risk assumptions. You want to make sure you're continuously discussing
Well,
this.
that's the big part that you said was the fact of the importance of regular reviews and not just to sort of put it in place and just assume it's going to go on autopilot.
Right.
Um, okay. So as you know, we're recording this is on video, and we're going to have this on our website. And so people can watch and they're going to see all of your contact information, your name, your company, the phone numbers, email addresses, all of that. But a lot of people listen to our podcast. Surprisingly enough, it's a podcast. So Apple, Spotify, classic examples, they're out for a walk, they're listening to us. They're not going to be able to see your contact information. So how on earth can anybody get a hold of you? What's the best way to contact you?
Okay, so I am very reachable and I'm very accessible and I'm also very responsive. So they can reach me at my office phone number, which is 347-440-1433. That's my office number. They can also email me and I'm very responsive. My email is my first initial and last name, L Salkin, Salkin, at Fieldstone, Fieldstoneins.com.
Perfect. Lori, this has been fun.
Wayne, it has been fun.
And I got a great idea for a second podcast. Remember I told you I thought there were more than one? Well, there's way more than one.
You
But
mean you
I
want
think
me back? You want me
are
back
you
already?
kidding? Sooner than later. So here is an idea. This is totally just off the top of my head.
Let's
We
go.
should do it. We should do a podcast on the 3 questions a high net worth homeowner should ask about uh, avoiding adverse claim results. In other words, what can I do to make sure that my claims don't get turned down? Or, in other
Well,
words,
I am not an adjuster, so I
I know
can't,
that,
you
but
know,
but there are
I
steps
could
that
play
they
one
can
on
make.
TV, but I'm not an adjuster.
Fair enough, but that would be a conversation I'd like to
Mhm.
have. Maybe anyway,
We can definitely talk about it.
we're going to brainstorm. Okay,
We are.
Lori, this was
Wayne,
fun. So much fun, and thank you for coming on with me today. And
thank you for having me on.
it
This
was
was great.
awesome.
I loved it.
Yeah, so we're going to do this again for sure. So Lori
Wonderful.
Salkin is a West Palm Beach, Florida-based senior client executive with Fieldstone Group. She is awesome. If you are in Florida or anywhere up and down the East Coast or anywhere across the
Especially in
United
New
States,
York, Northeast, all over.
yes,
Mhm.
exactly. She is your go-to person. Lori, thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night, okay?
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to bringing you 3 Questions podcast. I hope you find them educational and informative. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to our podcast and YouTube channel. And to receive a notification of when our latest episode has been posted, please click on the notifications bell. Last but not least, to schedule an online Zoom consultation with me to discuss your wealth management needs, please click on the link in the description box below, www.onecapital.com/meet with Wayne. Thank you, and we will see you soon.